The mythical encounter between Odysseus and Circe, where he draws his sword and subdues the enchantress, isn't just a tale of adventure. In Frank Onice's book, The Sword and the Bride, this dramatic moment is reinterpreted as an entirely internal event, a profound metaphor for mastering our own subconscious.
That's exactly right, Mia. Onasi takes Book 10 of Homer's Odyssey and views it as an esoteric journey. Odysseus himself is the conscious will, while Circe represents our subconscious, the feeling nature that continuously weaves our reality. The external events are simply images of faculties and movements within a single human consciousness.
So the sword isn't a physical weapon. The union isn't a literal romantic act.
Precisely. The sword is an image of what Onice calls the word of truth, spoken with inner authority. The oath Circe swears is a state secured against relapse, a binding commitment. And the marriage or union of Odysseus and Circe is an image of joining the conscious will with the subconscious feeling within one person. Nothing in this interpretation depicts literal violence or sexual acts.
This recontextualizes everything. So Onice suggests we don't just survive the enchantress, but actually wed her power. That's a huge shift from simply trying to resist her influence.
It is. The core teaching is that we were never meant only to survive the enchantress. We were meant to wed her. The power that once transformed us against our wish is the same power that, rightly wed, transforms the world according to our will. As Onice paraphrases Homer, quote, "She swore the great oath that she would not plot any further harm against him, and when she had sworn it, he consented, and she became his helper and his guide." End quote.
That's a powerful idea, turning a force that once worked against you into an ally. But before that union, there's the initial confrontation. This book is about the mastery phase, building on earlier steps in the Circe Mysteries series, I understand.
Absolutely. Onice explains that previous books in the series established how to recognize the trap of the senses, understand the law by which appearances harden into fact, and receive an herb of immunity so external appearances could no longer transform you. This fourth book begins at the pivotal moment when you are protected but not yet free at the threshold of mastery.
So a protected seeker becomes immune, but immunity isn't the final goal. The moment the cup fails to transform them, they must draw the sword. That's the turn from defense to dominion.
Exactly. The drawn sword marks the critical shift from merely withstanding the subconscious to ruling it. Immunity is the platform, the secure footing, but command is the act it's built for. Onice states, quote, "The moment the appearance fails to transform you is not the moment to relax in your safety, it is the moment to advance, to stop merely withstanding the subconscious and begin to command it." End quote. You go from being unharmable to the one who commands.
And this sword isn't just any assertion. Onice is very specific that it's the word of truth, the I am decree. It sounds like it demands more than just a passing thought.
It certainly does. The sword is a sovereign declaration of what is true, wielded with inner authority. It's not a plea, a whispered hope, or a wish. As Onice puts it, quote, "The word is figured as a sword for good reason. It is sharp. It cuts through the appearances to the truth. It is decisive. It does not waver or plead, but declares, and it is wielded with authority. It is the instrument by which the conscious will commands the feeling nature." End quote. It declares, it does not beg.
But a declaration can still be weak or hesitant. How does one ensure this word has the cutting edge of a sword?
That's where the decisive manner comes in. Onice emphasizes that the subconscious obeys a command, not a plea. The seeker must wield the word as a sword, not offer it as a supplication. It's sharp and decisive, cutting through appearances rather than negotiating with them.
This whole process seems to have a fixed order, almost like a ritual. You can't just jump to the sword without the immunity first.
The order is critical, and it cannot be reversed. You cannot command the subconscious effectively if it can still transform you. Immunity must precede command because command rests on that secure footing. If you try to command while still vulnerable, the subconscious can simply reassert its power, overriding your decree. As Onice writes, quote, "Only the seeker the cup cannot transform can safely raise the blade, for only he commands from a position the subconscious cannot overthrow." End quote.
So the failed cup is the signal. That's when you know you can advance. But this rushing upon her as though to take her life sounds quite aggressive. Is this meant literally, even internally?
Not literally, but with wholehearted, decisive force. Onasi explains that Hermes' counsel was not to approach politely or tentatively suggest a change, but to rush with the full, decisive force of one who truly means it. The subconscious interprets hesitation as permission to remain master. It obeys conviction, not division or half measures.
So your internal resolve has to be absolute. And when that happens, Onaisi describes the enchantress shrieking and falling. It implies the subconscious collapses instantly, which is counterintuitive to how we often experience inner struggles.
It's a crucial teaching. The seeker often expects a long, hard battle, but when true authority is exercised, the subconscious yields immediately. Onasi says, quote, "The thing he feared for so long collapses in an instant. It was never the true master. It only ruled because he had never truly commanded." End quote. This sudden collapse reveals the subconscious was always a servant, not a master, merely acting as a usurper in the absence of a rightful command.
That's a profound reframe. We're not fighting an enemy, but reclaiming a throne. So the subconscious yields because obedience is its very nature.
Yes, Onasi says the subconscious was always obeying. When it transformed you into states you did not want, it was faithfully executing commands you had given it, unknowingly through your fears, repeated assumptions, or acceptance of sensory reports. It is a servant by nature, not a master. It just executed the wrong orders. The great relief is realizing you do not need to defeat it, only command it rightly.
And when Odysseus commands, Circe recognizes him. This implies the subconscious isn't just submitting, but actively acknowledging its rightful master, almost with relief.
Exactly. The subconscious knows its rightful master. It has been waiting for the seeker to claim the authority that was always theirs. There's relief on both sides. The servant is relieved to serve a true master at last, and the seeker discovers the subconscious was never waiting to be conquered, but to be claimed.
So how does one speak this word of truth with that kind of genuine authority? Is it about sheer force of will or volume?
Onaisi is clear. Authority is not volume. True authority is calm certainty. It's the quiet decree of one who already is what they declare, who speaks from the end as though it were already so. A forced shout betrays doubt, but the calm decree carries true command. You speak from a place of settled conviction, not anxious effort.
That's a subtle but critical distinction. It sounds like many affirmations we try fall into the category of pleading rather than commanding.
They do. Pleading is the supplicant's posture, begging from below. It reinforces the idea that the subconscious is above you and that you lack what you're begging for. Every plea confirms the very thing it would undo. The master does not plead, they command, declaring from the assumed end as one who already has.
So once the subconscious yields to this calm, authoritative command and recognizes you, is that the end? Or does Onaisi introduce something else to secure that mastery?
It's not the end. Before Odysseus consents to anything further, he requires Circe to swear a great oath that she will plot no further harm. This means the command, once won, must be secured. An unsealed subduing can come undone. The oath is the sealing of the assumption, the firm commitment of the new state, held persistently until it's deeply impressed into the feeling nature. It guards against relapse.
So the old state will test the oath. It's not a one-and-done deal. The oath has to hold when the familiar pull or old appearances return.
Exactly. Onaisi says, quote, "Relapse is the old state returning when the appearances press or vigilance lapses," end quote. The oath is the safeguard held by ongoing fidelity, not a single act. It binds the new state against the return of the old, ensuring the subconscious remains faithful.
This whole first part of Onaisi's book, The Sword, moves the seeker from immunity to full dominion. But he argues that dominion alone isn't the whole of mastery. The conqueror has to become the bridegroom.
That's the pivotal transition to part 2, the bride. A subconscious merely dominated, though subdued, remains a resentful servant, not a willing ally. Compelled obedience is not the same as glad cooperation. The sword compels, but the union weds, and only the wedded feeling nature brings the seeker's desire to pass with its full creative power.
So the counsel is do not refuse the union. But if you've just subdued this powerful inner force, wouldn't the natural inclination be to keep it at arm's length?
It is a temptation, yes. The conqueror part of us wants to dominate, to keep the feeling nature safely subdued but separate. But Onaisi argues that to refuse the union leaves the work half done. It leaves you with a resentful captive rather than winning the glad ally that flows from true union. The command needs to be completed by the marriage of conscious will and subconscious feeling.
This marriage of will and feeling sounds like the core of Onaisi's teaching. How do these two internal faculties interact in this union?
In Onaisi's view, the conscious will is the deciding, directing self. The subconscious feeling is the generative feeling nature that weaves reality. Neither rules alone. Will without feeling is barren command. It directs, but cannot generate. Feeling without will is undirected power. It generates, but runs wild. Wedded, they create. The will provides direction, and the feeling provides the generative power to make that chosen end real.
So command alone isn't enough because a compelled servant gives only what it must, withholding its full power.
Precisely. Onaisi says, quote, "You cannot force the feeling to generate gladly. You can only wed it." End quote. Command secures minimum obedience, but it cannot compel glad full generative power. The subconscious, when merely dominated, withholds its abundance. Only union releases the full creative potential.
And the truly astonishing part is that the very power that once enslaved you, once wedded, becomes the power that brings your desire to pass. The same power, just redirected.
That's the great reversal. The feeling nature that wove your fears into fact is the same generative force that wed now to your will weaves your chosen end into fact. Nothing new is added. It's the captor's power redirected. As Onaisi notes, quote, "The seeker's former bondage measures his potential mastery. The power that enslaved him so thoroughly will serve him just as thoroughly once wed." End quote.
This means the enchantress, Circe, becomes the ally. The subconscious isn't an adversary anymore, but a helper working for you.
It's the visible fruit of the union. The subconscious now serves your chosen end, tirelessly working to weave the felt reality of your assumed state, bringing evidence and opportunities. The struggle shifts from fighting a captor to setting the end and letting the ally bring it to pass. It's a deep rest from struggle, as Onaisi describes it.
And the allegorical men who were transformed into swine are restored, but younger and handsomer than before. So the faculties we lost are not just recovered, but improved.
Indeed, the men are our own faculties, energies, and capacities. The restoration is not merely undoing the damage, but exceeding the loss. The faculties return improved, better than the original, refined by their passage through the depths. Mastery, in this sense, recovers what bondage reduced, and the recovery surpasses the loss.
So the operational heart of Onaisi's mastery is feeling wedded to will. The will chooses the end, and the feeling makes it real.
Exactly. Feeling is the creative substance. It's the felt reality of the wish fulfilled that impresses itself on the deeper self and hardens into fact. But feeling alone, undirected by will, weaves chaos. So the will directs the feeling to dwell in the assumed state until it is felt as real, performing the creative act.
After all this, Odysseus and his men don't immediately sail home. They stay on Circe's island for a year. That implies mastery isn't a single event, but a condition that needs to be lived in.
The year on the island is a season of rest, feasting, and dwelling in the new order. Mastery must be consolidated, integrated, made habitual. The union of will and feeling isn't a one-time achievement, but a new order of the self that must be lived in until it seasons into your very nature. The striving ends and the rest consolidates the mastery.
This reverses the entire order. The subconscious that was master is now servant, and the self that was victim is now master. It sounds like Onaisi sees this as the restoration of a true natural order.
That's precisely it. Bondage was the inversion of the true order, where the seeker served what was meant to serve him. Mastery is the correction, setting the will over the feeling as it was always meant to be. It's not imposing an unnatural order, but restoring the rightful one.
And like any marriage, this union of will and feeling isn't self-maintaining. It requires ongoing tending.
Onassis stresses that a neglected union erodes. It's a living relationship requiring daily fidelity. Continuing to command rightly, feeling chosen ends real, holding the right order and refusing inversion. Tending deepens the union, making mastery richer and more natural over time.
So after all this, after achieving mastery, one might assume the journey is over. But Circe, now the guide, points beyond herself to a descent to the underworld. Mastery isn't the end, but a threshold.
It's the ultimate paradox. The mastered subconscious, now your ally, knows there's a deeper journey into the depths of the self, an underworld of the deep mind, where a wisdom beyond mastery waits. This descent is the subject of the fifth and final book in the Circe Mysteries series. Onassis positions mastery not as the destination, but as the platform for this deeper exploration.
This whole journey, as laid out by Frank Onassis in The Sword and the Bride, takes us from being protected by immunity to commanding the subconscious, then wedding it into a powerful, creative alliance, all leading to a new, deeper adventure. It redefines self-mastery not as conquest, but as a harmonious, intentional union.
It is a profound and practical framework for inner practice, as Onassis describes it, drawing on classical sources, the New Thought tradition, and depth psychology to guide the reader.
Share this episode with someone ready to transform their inner landscape.